Everyone remembers the mask, the pale skin, the thin frame, the whispered stories, and the final headlines. For years, the public was told a very simple version of Michael Jackson's health story, that he became strange, weak, and sick because of fame, surgery, and celebrity excess. But when you slow down and look at the medical record, the story becomes much more complicated and much more human. The hidden fact is this: Michael Jackson's final medical story was not simply about a man whose body was naturally falling apart. His autopsy did not show a body destroyed by a mysterious disease. It did not show the simple tabloid image of a dying skeleton. Instead, it showed something more disturbing. His body still had signs of strength, but his sleep system, pain history, medication environment, and private medical care had become dangerous. And that is where the truth behind the illness narrative really begins. In the 1980s, Michael Jackson was not just singing on stage, he was operating like a high-performance athlete inside a music machine. Watch The Bad Era carefully. His movements were sharp, repeated, explosive, and controlled. The spins, toe stands, kicks, locks, drops, and sudden stops required balance, stamina, timing, and muscle memory. A casual viewer sees entertainment. A technical viewer sees a body working under extreme conditions. On a major stage, a performer is not just dancing. He is listening to music cues, counting beats, following lighting marks, staying inside camera zones, managing a live microphone, remembering choreography, controlling breathing, and still making it look effortless. That is why the 1980s version of Michael matters so much. He was thin, yes, but he was also physically capable of surviving a performance style that would exhaust most healthy people in minutes. That alone challenges the later idea that he had always been medically fragile. But the first forgotten fact is that the public often confused visible appearance with full medical reality. Michael's changing skin became one of the most misunderstood medical stories in pop culture. For years, people framed it as vanity, denial, or identity confusion. But the medical evidence pointed to vitiligo, an autoimmune skin condition that causes loss of pigment in patches. That detail matters because it changes the story from gossip to medicine. Vitiligo is not a fashion choice. It is not a lighting trick. It is the immune system mistakenly attacking pigment cells in the skin. Once the pigment loss spreads, makeup can become part of daily life, not for glamour, but for visual consistency. A person under normal life pressure may hide it with clothing, makeup, or sunlight avoidance. Now imagine that same condition on the most photographed entertainer in the world, under stage lights, flash photography, magazine covers, music videos, and close public inspection. This is where the illness narrative became unfair. The public saw the surface and built a mythology around it. But autoimmune disease does not always look dramatic in the way people expect. It can be silent, uneven, and humiliating. It can affect how someone is judged long before it affects whether they can perform. Michael's skin story was not just about color, it was about control. In the 1980s, as he became more famous, he also became more visually examined. Every change in his face, skin, hair, and body was treated like a public mystery. But if you understand vitiligo, you understand why a performer obsessed with presentation would try to manage the visible effects. The forgotten fact is not simply that he had vitiligo. Many people know that now. The forgotten fact is that a real medical condition was turned into a moral accusation for years. The second forgotten fact is that one of the most important medical turning points happened during the same decade when he looked almost unstoppable. In January 1984, during the filming of a Pepsi commercial, pyrotechnics went wrong and Michael's hair caught fire. The public often remembers this as a shocking celebrity accident, but medically it was more than a headline. Burns to the scalp can create long-term pain, scar tissue, repeated procedures, sensitivity, and emotional trauma. Years later, Michael publicly said medication had originally been prescribed for intense pain after reconstructive scalp surgery. This detail matters because it connects two different versions of his life: the powerful performer of the 1980s and the later patient surrounded by prescription drugs. To understand this technically, pain after a serious burn is not just pain in the simple sense. Burn injuries can affect nerves, skin tightness, sleep, mood, and daily comfort. Reconstructive procedures can restart pain cycles. Scar tissue can pull. The scalp is not a hidden body part for a performer like Michael Jackson. It is connected to hair, makeup, cameras, costumes, and image. So the Pepsi accident was not just a tragic moment. It was a medical doorway. It introduced a pain management chapter into the life of someone whose career demanded physical perfection. That does not mean one accident explains every later problem. That would be too simple. But it does mean the old story of he just became strange misses the medical chain that began while the world was still watching him dance like he could not be hurt. The third forgotten fact is that the autopsy challenged one of the biggest myths from 2009. In the final months of his life, many reports and rumors painted Michael Jackson as a man whose body was already collapsing. People described him as extremely frail, almost ghost-like, as if death from natural weakness was inevitable. But the official autopsy told a more specific story. It listed him at 5 feet 9 inches and 136 pounds. That is thin, but it is not the same thing as a body medically wasted beyond function. The report also described major organs in ways that did not match the most extreme tabloid image. This is one of the strongest counterintuitive points in the entire story. Michael Jackson did have medical issues, but the final cause was not simply that his body gave up from ordinary illness. This is important because people often misunderstand autopsy language. An autopsy is not a gossip report. It is a structured medical document. It records height, weight, external findings, internal organs, toxicology, injuries, disease, and cause of death. It separates what is present in the body from what actually caused death. A person can have arthritis, scars, skin disease, lung inflammation, old injuries, or medication history, but the cause of death is determined by what directly produced the fatal event. In Michael's case, the official cause was acute propofol intoxication with benzodiazepine effect. That phrase matters. It means the final medical event was tied to a powerful anesthetic and sedating medications, not a mysterious natural disease destroying him from the inside. This does not mean he was perfectly healthy. It means the real story is more precise. His body was strained, but not in the simplistic way many people imagined. His health had layers: autoimmune skin disease, pain history, possible arthritis, sleep problems, medication exposure, stress, and physical demands. But the autopsy forced a hard truth into the record. The final danger was not just Michael being sick. It was a medical environment where a hospital-level anesthetic was being used in a private bedroom for sleep. That is not normal care. That is not regular insomnia treatment. That is the point where the celebrity story becomes a medical safety story. The fourth forgotten fact is probably the most misunderstood. Michael Jackson's most dangerous illness near the end may not have been what people could see. It may have been what he could not get: real sleep. Chronic insomnia is not just feeling tired. It can break memory, temperature regulation, mood, decision-making, immune function, reaction time, and physical recovery. During rehearsals for This Is It, reports and testimony described problems that sound like sleep collapse, weight changes, coldness, confusion, memory issues, anxiety, and difficulty functioning under pressure. A casual viewer may call that weakness. A sleep doctor would ask a different question. When was this person last getting real, restorative sleep? This is where propofol becomes central. Propofol can make a person unconscious, but unconsciousness is not the same as sleep. Natural sleep has structure. The brain moves through stages. There is non-REM sleep, deeper slow-wave sleep, and REM sleep. These stages help memory, emotional regulation, tissue recovery, and brain cleanup. Propofol works differently. It is an anesthetic used for procedures, usually with monitoring, airway support, trained professionals, and emergency equipment nearby. It can erase awareness, but it does not simply give the brain a normal night of sleep. So if someone uses propofol repeatedly as a substitute for sleep, the body may appear to shut off, while the deeper restorative processes of sleep are not being satisfied in the normal way. That is the technical breakdown most viewers have never heard. Sleep is not just a light switch. It is a biological repair cycle. Imagine eating paper because it fills your stomach but gives no nutrition. That is the kind of comparison sleep experts have made about sedation versus real sleep. The body may stop complaining for a few hours, but the brain still does not receive the full pattern it needs. That is why the sleep story is so important. It reframes the final months from "he looked strange" to "his nervous system may have been running on empty." And when a body is sleep deprived, rehearsing for a massive comeback show is not just hard, it becomes dangerous. To understand the pressure, think about how a comeback production works. This was not a small club performance. A major concert production is a machine. There are dancers, choreographers, lighting teams, video screens, sound engineers, stage managers, costume people, promoters, insurers, executives, camera crews, and investors. Every rehearsal hour costs money. Every missed cue creates pressure. The artist is not just singing. The artist is the center of the entire machine. If Michael missed a mark, dozens of people had to reset. If he changed a movement, lighting had to follow. If he forgot a lyric, teleprompter support or cueing became important. If he was too exhausted, the machine still had deadlines. In that environment, insomnia is not a private inconvenience. It becomes a production crisis. The fifth forgotten fact is that Michael's body was carrying hidden strain, but the strain was not the same as the public myth. Some medical reviews of his autopsy discussed lung abnormalities, inflammation, scarring, and other chronic findings. These details matter because they may explain why he could appear tired, short of breath, or physically inconsistent. But there is a difference between a contributing health burden and the official cause of death. Lung findings can be real and still not be the direct fatal event. Arthritis can be real and still not be the cause of death. Skin disease can be real and still not be the cause of death. This is why the medical story must be told carefully. The truth is not he was healthy and nothing was wrong. The truth is also not he was naturally dying and nothing could have saved him. The truth is in between. He had real health burdens, but the final danger came from a preventable medical chain. That chain becomes clearer when you compare the 1980s to the 2000s. In the 1980s, Michael's health issues were mostly hidden behind performance power. The audience saw speed, precision, voice, rhythm, and style. The Pepsi burn was private pain behind public perfection. Vitiligo was a medical condition behind public judgment. The body was already dealing with stress, but the stage image was still superhuman. By the 2000s, the balance had changed. The same perfectionism now existed inside an older body, under legal pressure, financial pressure, public pressure, and comeback pressure. The physical machine was still being asked to perform, but the recovery system behind it, especially sleep, was failing. This is what makes the illness narrative so misleading. People like simple explanations. They want one cause. They want to say he was sick, or he was not sick. He was strong, or he was fragile. He was responsible, or he was a victim. But real medical history does not work like that. A human body is a system. Pain affects sleep. Sleep affects memory. Memory affects rehearsals. Rehearsal pressure affects anxiety. Anxiety affects sleep again. Medication may reduce one symptom while creating another danger. A burn injury from 1984 can echo into later years. An autoimmune skin disorder can change public identity. A powerful anesthetic can create the illusion of rest while deepening the crisis. This is the real story, not one illness, but layers. And this is where Michael Jackson's case becomes bigger than celebrity. It teaches something about how the public reads bodies. When a famous person looks different, people create stories. When someone loses weight, people assume weakness. When someone covers their face, people assume weirdness. When someone has skin changes, people assume vanity. But the medical record often tells a quieter truth. Michael's skin changes were not simply a mystery for tabloids. His burn pain was not just a dramatic accident story. His insomnia was not just can't sleep. His final medication environment was not normal rest. And his autopsy did not match the cartoon version of a man who simply faded away from natural sickness. The most important lesson is this. The visible Michael Jackson was never the full Michael Jackson. On stage, he was an athletic technician. In photographs, he was a public symbol. In gossip columns, he was a mystery. But in the medical record, he was a patient with specific conditions, specific injuries, specific drugs in his system, and a specific cause of death. That difference matters. Because once you remove the noise, the final story becomes less about celebrity strangeness and more about medical boundaries being crossed. The public asked, why did he look so different? The better question is, what was happening medically while everyone was staring at his appearance? The public asked, was he really sick? But the better question is, which parts of his illness story were real and which parts were created by misunderstanding? The public asked, how could a man rehearsing for a comeback suddenly die? But the better question is, what happens when a sleep-deprived body is treated with anesthesia instead of real sleep? So here are the 5 forgotten facts again, but now with the myth removed. First, his skin story was medical before it was cultural. Vitiligo turned into public judgment because most people did not understand autoimmune disease. Second, the Pepsi burn was not just an accident. It may have opened a long chapter of pain treatment and medical vulnerability. Third, the autopsy did not support the extreme idea that he was simply a dying skeleton. It showed a thinner man with real issues, but not a body naturally destroyed beyond explanation. Fourth, the final crisis was deeply connected to sleep, and propofol could create unconsciousness without giving the full benefits of natural sleep. Fifth, his body had hidden strain, including chronic findings, but the official cause points to a preventable medication event, not an unavoidable natural illness. That is the truth behind Michael Jackson's illness narrative. He was not just the unstoppable performer of the 1980s. He was not just the fragile figure people saw in the 2000s. He was both, at different stages, under different pressures. The tragedy is that the world spent years debating his appearance while the more important medical story stayed in the shadows. Behind the makeup was a skin disease. Behind the hat was a burn history. Behind the rehearsals was insomnia. Behind the word sleep was an anesthetic that was never meant to replace sleep. And behind the final headline was a body that may still have had strength, but was placed in a situation it could not survive. So the next time someone repeats the old line that Michael Jackson was simply sick, remember this. The record tells a more serious story. His illness narrative was not fake, but it was incomplete. It was not one disease, one rumor, or one weakness. It was a chain of real medical problems, misunderstood symptoms, hidden pain, sleep deprivation, and dangerous treatment. The real tragedy is not that the world saw him change. The real tragedy is that the world saw the changes but missed what they meant.